So I'm out here on my morning walk, which is something that I was doing through the fall and winter when it was freezing cold. And I got out of the habit of doing when I started doing cardio earlier in the spring. So I would start my morning with cardio, not go for a walk, and instead just replaced it. And then once I removed the cardio, I didn't re-implement my walk. And it was something that last week I really realized how much I'm missing it, because it is such a clarifying way to go into my day. I do like to meditate in the morning. It gives me a lot of clarity and helps me establish focus on what it is that I want to not only accomplish in the day, but the mindset with which I want to go into the day. So I like that. But there's something about getting outside, being exposed to sunlight. Andrew Huberman talks about that as well in terms of our sleep-wake cycles. And because I don't have a ton of sunlight in the apartment, it can feel a little bit tiring to be in there all day without any sunlight. Whereas when I get out in the morning and I get some sunlight, I feel very awake. It's like my body recognizes it's morning, and I get back to the apartment ready to rumble with work for the day. I also like to listen to my Bible while I'm walking. So this is a great time to just study scripture and really listen to the word. And what's cool about the Bible app is you can play it, like audio play, which is really helpful for me because it allows me to have this dual experience of being in nature while also listening to the word, being able to walk and think about it. And again, it's just another way to prime my day. We talk about priming our workouts, getting our muscles and joints prepared for what's ahead. And that's really what I think the morning is for, which is why with my clients, with my posts, I'm so adamant about the importance of a morning routine. So I've been reading through the Gospels right now. It's just something that I've been wanting to do for a while. And I'm sure I've been through them all before, but it's been a while since I've done them in order, and I feel very compelled to learn a little bit more about the spirit of Jesus and who he truly was and the things that he said, and start to ingrain some of that knowledge into my daily life and daily practice and walk with God. But if you're not super familiar with the scriptures or you're very visual, there's this awesome YouTube channel called The Bible Project, and they do a really great job of explaining different concepts in the Bible, usually in the format of walking through either a series of books such as the Torah, or to walk through one book at a time. And right now I'm going through Matthew. There's a couple videos on Matthew that really break it down well if you're curious. So right now I'm still kind of struggling with this adductor strain, which happened in jiu-jitsu last week. I knew right when it happened that I pulled it, and it's not unusual. I had a feeling earlier in the year that this adductor was getting pretty tight, and with my hips being slightly asymmetrical, it's, I don't want to say normal, but it can be somewhat expected over time to have muscular imbalances and issues around the hips. And since I've pulled my other adductor in the past, actually tore that one, I was honestly just grateful I didn't tear this one. But it's definitely been a little bit more of a nuisance than I anticipated. The first day I woke up, I was hobbling around because I feel it wrapping all the way from like my knee all the way up into the front portion of my hip. So it is one of those things that I really feel as soon as my leg is here and gets extended behind my body, and when I have all my weight on that leg in my gait cycle, I feel it. So lately, in terms of mindset, I've really tried to focus on what is God trying to teach me in this? What is the lesson here? And what I found is it's kind of twofold. So the first is I can't do quite as much activity. I have to be really aware of what my body is telling me it needs. telling me that I need to avoid. So it's helping increase that interoception or internal awareness of my bodily cues. But another thing it's really helping me do is be more mindful. I have to slow down a lot while I'm walking, and that can be really challenging. But as soon as I start to speed up to just try to get my steps, when I think about the end goal of this walk as opposed to the actual process, I start walking faster, and as soon as I do, it slips again. And yesterday it happened, and I had to just like sit in the street for a few minutes because it just takes my breath away when this adductor catches. But it's been a really needed reminder to just slow down and be where you're at and not focus on the end goal, but focus on the excellent pursuit, which I think is where we truly find satisfaction for what we're doing. In terms of competing, we can look at the stage, and a lot of people will structure their prep with that end goal of the stage. But if you lose sight of the excellent pursuit along the way, you not only lose track of the excitement of checking off your boxes each day, of being 1% better every day, but you also delay all of your gratification, all of your joy, all of your excitement, and all of your sense of fulfillment on that end date, that stage shot, that placing. And if it doesn't go as expected, you'll feel crushed because all of your joy in the whole process was delayed till that end point, as opposed to being super satisfied with the way that you're executing and seeing that end point is just an opportunity to display the hard work that you put in. So big life lessons here, all from this adductor tear, pulled adductor. But I'm grateful for it. I know that if I didn't learn it this way, I'd have to learn it a harder way, because that's the nature of life. So I'm going to continue with this walk. Today I have just a full normal day for me with check-ins, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about going off plan. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of my walk, and then I'll get back with you after. I'll talk about what happens when you go off plan, how to manage it, and how to move forward mentally and physically. So what do you do when you mess up your plan? You guys know that right now I'm not on a plan. I've been eating intuitively. But even with that, there are some principles of intuitive eating, 10 principles. And they aren't rules, but they are guidelines by which to approach the process of intuitive eating and how to address your thoughts around food, your approach to food, and your mindset around your body and diet. And diet being, for me and for most people, a lot of the ingrained concepts that we have that we've adopted from diet culture. So reading things that told us what we should and shouldn't eat, or going through different diet programs that explain foods as being either good or bad, or things that we were told earlier in our lives, things our parents may have said, like limitations they put on us in regards to food, or just little comments we've heard made throughout our lives from other people who have ingrained these diet culture messages. So there's a lot of ways that we internalize these messages and we start to live them and accept them as truth. And then when we try to move into the realm of intuitive eating, it becomes really difficult because we are having to face a lot of these recurrent and deeply ingrained thoughts that have guided our food choices before. So while I'm not on a plan right now, there are some general values that I have around my diet as I really embrace intuitive eating and what it looks like. And I gotta admit, I messed up this week. I broke one of my commitments to myself. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to be upfront and honest about where I've struggled with the process, But also, if you're someone who is on a diet plan, whether you're attempting to lose weight or you're in prep for a competition, or perhaps you're trying to gain muscle, or perhaps you're trying to eat more food in order to increase your caloric intake because you've undereaten for so long, or perhaps you also are on a journey of intuitive eating. Regardless of where you're at, we all have goals, whether or not we're truly aware of them. And we have behaviors that we implement that are either in alignment or not in alignment with our goals. So again, first things first, know your goals. For me, my goal is to learn to eat intuitively. So in order to do that, that means I need to make decisions based on the internal awareness I have with my body, or what we call interoception. If I'm making decisions out of interoception or my bodily cues, then I can't also be making decisions based on diet rules. Those two cannot coexist. And if I'm choosing diet rules, then I am inevitably shutting down or choosing to avoid or ignore the signals that my body is sending me. One has to always take priority. So in this journey, my first chapter, or the first principle that I really embraced, was to reject the diet mentality. And with that, I made a few commitments to myself. I made the commitment to delete my weight apps from my phone. I made the commitment to put up my body weight scale and not weigh anymore. And I made the commitment to not weigh my food anymore. There are a couple things that I still measure. Those being oats. Like oats, I'll use a measuring cup within the oat container. And protein powder, I'll use the scooper. Everything else though, I'm just eyeballing it. And I feel really proud about that because I've gone for so long weighing every gram of everything. If I didn't have a scale with me, I would freak out and would just choose not to eat. So I've made a lot of progress with that. And putting up that scale for 2 weeks was huge. I was able to set aside my worries about my body weight and body composition and really just focus on my relationship with food. But I slipped up. So I felt over the weekend that I was getting a little soft. I started talking negatively about my body. I started thinking that I was off track. I started feeling those old thoughts come up of, well, if you just went back on a diet, you would be where you wanted to be. You used to have abs. You say you're trying to be healthy. You're probably still overeating. You think you know what to eat, but you've always had to be on a diet. So how could you possibly know what to eat? When you listen to your body in the past, you just binged. I felt all of these thoughts come back up. And I started thinking to myself, okay, where in my day could I restrict calories? Is there a meal that I could just cut some easy calories out of? And I started feeling all of those old thoughts come back up. So what did I do? The next day I woke up and still just feeling like I was in a whirlwind of emotion around those thoughts. I decided to exert some control by weighing myself. What's funny about weighing ourselves is we think that it's an exertion of control, like we're controlling every variable because we're very aware of our data and we can make changes intelligently because we know where we're at from a body composition standpoint. But the scale is just one measurement of progress. It in no way fully encompasses your progress. If your weight is going up, that doesn't necessarily mean you're gaining body fat. Especially as females, we have massive shifts in water around our period. Many of us have lots of shifts in water around our hydration status, our activity levels. If we trained really hard the day before, it's pretty normal for weight to go up with all the inflammation. We'll have shifts in water around salt intake. There's just so many things that go into weight that it can really only be seen as very limited value. It's one data point in a large picture of data points, which is why as a coach, I do look at weight, but I'm looking at pictures. I'm listening to progress in the gym. I'm having you report your training progressions. I'm having you report your adherence. I'm having you report your mental state, because all of those things together fully encompass the picture of progress, not just weight. So here I am knowing all of that, and I decide, well, I need some control. I feel out of control. I need a reason to not restrict. And I put the scale down and I weighed, and I was heavier than I thought. And what happened? My mindset for the day went. Why? Because we tie our worth to body weight. Why is that? It's a lot of messages that we get throughout our lives. I know for myself, I grew up in a household where body weight was very much tied to worth. There was a lot of talk around ideal body weights and negative talk around being above that body weight, positive talk about being below that body weight or dropping body weight or being skinny. And all of that I really took inside, and I internalized to the point where I decided that my self-worth was so dependent on my weight that even still, while I know logically my self-worth is not dependent on my weight, I still have a lot of those voices that come up, and it's normal, but my sense of control should truly come from the fact that I can choose that those aren't true. Just because you think something doesn't mean it's true. So if you think that your self-worth is dependent on your weight, if you think that someone won't love you because you weigh a certain amount, if you think that you're lazy because you weigh a certain amount or don't fit in a certain size or don't adhere to some external body standard put out by the media, if you tie some kind of sense of self-worth to that, you are then the one deciding that that has control over you. And I made the mistake of stepping on the scale and giving it control over my mind for that day. It's not that the scale is bad. It's that I'm in the infancy state of intuitive eating. And so by stepping on the scale at a time when I'm still very vulnerable, I wasn't in a state to look at that number objectively and not tie my worth to it. And I was also choosing to weigh in order to feel a higher sense of self-worth. And when it didn't say what I wanted it to say, I felt that self-worth plummet because, again, I was tying my self-worth to that number. So that's how I went off track. And everyone's different. That may sound silly to you, but this one decision led to a cascade of events, emotionally and somewhat physically. I had to really consciously make the decision through the rest of that day and then yesterday, since this was a couple days ago, to choose my foods based on what my body was telling me it needed, to not cut out food when I felt tempted to remember my goal. And having my goal written out, I want to live a healthy, energetic life in a body that I love, in a body that serves me, by honoring what my body needs and being active in a way that makes me feel good and energized and able to show up for everything in my life. That's my vision. Because I have that clear vision, I can go back to that and say, okay, if that's my vision, what will it take to achieve that? I know for me, that means eating intuitively. So I have to choose that as my driver. Otherwise, I'm choosing weight as my driver. And I know that that has not worked for me in the past. So that's one way to realign when you go off track. Now, that may sound strange to you because a lot of us don't go off track by weighing ourselves. Actually, a lot of us are weighing ourselves in order to see where we're at from a body composition standpoint because we don't really have another way to measure it that's very convenient. For many of us, going off track means going on a binge. I know that has been a big part of my past, and it was a never-ending cycle of trying to restrict food, being successful in that for a certain amount of time, and then having usually some kind of stressful event or just a buildup of stress that I wasn't super aware of. And then as soon as I gave in, and I'm using the language that I would use when I would think about it, as soon as I gave in to the temptation, I couldn't stop myself, and I would get in this feeding frenzy and just go and go and go and think, well, I've already messed it up, so I might as well keep going, get everything I want, because after tomorrow, I'm not going to be able to have any of this ever again, so I might as well just enjoy it right now. And then you get through it, you feel horrible, and you hate yourself, and you think, oh, there, I did it again. It's my lack of willpower. It's my lack of discipline. But it's not. It's that you don't have a clear enough goal as to what it is that you truly want. So that's where I say it's extremely important to write out your goal. So that's part of it. But what else is it? It's a poor relationship with food. And so, for some of us, it's an actual eating disorder where it's diagnosed and we require a lot of counseling and a lot of rerouting of behaviors, often through an assigned meal plan from a nutritionist. I have been there. I've gone through that. Some of us require residential treatment. There's a lot of different reasons why we go off track, and there's lots of different degrees to doing so. But what I'm more concerned about is not going off track, because we're all going to do that. We're all going to fall short, because if we're striving towards a goal that we haven't yet achieved, then it's likely that we don't have the behaviors that we need ingrained in order to achieve that goal. And so we have to practice those behaviors in order to work towards that goal. But practice inherently means that we will make mistakes in order to learn. So if we need to make mistakes in order to learn, then we need to reframe what failure or going off track means in our mind. If you were playing a sport and you were taught a new skill, let's say tennis. If you were playing tennis and you were working on your backhand and your coach tossed the ball to you and you swung at it with your backhand and you missed it, what would you do? Would you throw your racket on the ground and storm off? Would you close your eyes and continue swinging because it's like you already missed, so you might as well just keep swinging aimlessly at it until maybe eventually you hit something? Or would you stop, listen to the feedback, and then try again, knowing that you're going to be better because the mistake that you just made gave you some insight into how you can be better the next time? Our natural tendency after we make mistakes is to completely reroute what we're doing. We think we need to make up for it. We think we need to pay penance. We think we had a binge, so we need to then restrict food. But that's not the case. As soon as we do that, we're just aimlessly swinging. And eventually we're going to be so disappointed in ourselves, so demotivated because of lack of self-belief, because we're not even setting ourselves up for success anymore, that we're not going to feel that we have any momentum towards our goals, and we really won't believe that we have any ability to achieve them. But if you take each failure or mistake or mess up instead as a lesson, as an opportunity from which to learn, then you can move forward with a productive mindset and say, okay, I was supposed to eat my meal plan today, but I went out and had lunch. So what are my options? I could either cut back food the rest of the day. I could either double up my cardio, or I could just start fresh from the next meal and focus on being excellent from there. Not being perfect, because perfection is the lowest standard since it's not even achievable, but being excellent, which means being focused on your goals while you're in the pursuit of something. So you had your lunch off track, you're not sure what to do. Don't try to compensate, don't try to double up. Try to be excellent by just focusing on getting back on track with the tasks, behaviors, mindsets that you know are in alignment with your goal. If you're working with a coach, they've assigned a certain plan for you because it is in alignment with your goal. That's what you're trusting them for. They've assigned certain maybe mindset practices that will support you in achieving your goal. That's what they're there for. So you don't need to try to compensate, because you need to go back to the behaviors that are going to drive you towards that goal in the first place. So what do you do when you go off track? You jump right back on track. You don't try to go above and beyond. You don't spend all your time in guilt and self-pity and demoralizing yourself. Instead, you stop. You realign with your goals. If you have that written out, you look at it, you read it out loud, remember what it is that you really want, and then you take the next right step. Everything in life is about taking the next right step, doing the next right thing. If you live with that as the driving force of your life, you're gonna make a heck of a lot of progress. And there's not gonna be one mistake or instance that's gonna completely uproot you or throw you off course from your goals, because your goals are so deeply ingrained into who you are that all that follows is more steadily ingraining the behavior and mindset over time that is going to carry you towards those goals. So I hope this was helpful for you. We all fall off track. I just want to share that with you because there's been 1,000 times in my past where I've fallen off track. And even with intuitive eating, which seems like it would be the easiest thing in the world, I fall off track because I'm still learning the process. So have some grace with yourself. If you find yourself in this pattern of falling off track multiple times, it's time to step back and look at your true goals and maybe look at some of the obstacles that continue to present themselves. A lot of times we learn lessons over and over again on deeper levels. So if you find yourself running into the same wall over and over again, there's probably an entry point at which you can make a change that will prevent you from running into that same barrier again and again. But sometimes it takes an objective eye, like a coach or a friend or a loved one, to step back and say, hey, this is what I see. Here's where I think you might be able to make a change that's going to carry you towards your goals long term. So use the resources that you have. Learn to be objective. Speak to yourself as you would a friend, as you would a client, as if you were your own coach. And know that the main goal is to continue moving forward in the face of obstacles. We're never going to get to the point where we don't fall off track, where we don't make mistakes. And thank God, because that's where we learn. But what we can do is get to the point where we see each failure as an opportunity for growth and use it as a stepping stone to execute at a higher level moving forward. So thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment below. And if you haven't yet, check out my video on my self-coach program. I've also posted this on Instagram, but I am releasing a program on September 1st. That'll be one-on-one training between you and me with calls twice a week. During the process, I will teach you the skills, behavior, and habit development, as well as give you the tools needed to coach yourself. So build a nutrition plan, build a training program, and make intelligent changes in order to continue progressing towards your goal. It's going to be an intensive 12-week program. I'm super excited for it. I will post the link to apply in the description below. Other than that, stay tuned. Have lots more content coming your way. And if there's anything you guys would like to see, please comment below and I'll be happy to get that out for you. Thank you for watching.